Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. This is the post-game podcast for the Timberwolves lost to the Nuggets on Monday night. Of course, an antless Timberwolves team. Jamal Murray drops 43, including 23 in the third quarter. We'll talk about the Timberwolves' issues in terms of the perimeter defense, but also what they did not do offensively that contributed to them ultimately falling behind by double digits and losing this game despite a fourth quarter comeback attempt. It's all coming next. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and maybe a not so happy Tuesday. Timberwolves lose to the Nuggets Monday night, second night of a back-to-back. No Anthony Edwards, no Jalen Clark, which actually was pretty significant in this game. We'll talk more about that. Jamal Murray goes off for the Nuggets. Also a triple-double from Nikola Jokic, which isn't even the headline because of how often that happens and because of how good Jamal Murray was, especially in the third quarter and the second half of this game. A lot to get to today. I'm going to tell you what the Wolves did not do right offensively, what their biggest issues were defensively in this game. And I guess the overall, the biggest problems, overarching issues in this game. They had some guys play well. We'll talk about Jaden McDaniels, especially in the first half, was very good. Julius Randle, especially in the first half, was very good. Nas Reid had some good moments. The veteran guys, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, did not play so great. We'll talk about that as well on the show today. So a lot to get to. And of course, we'll close, as we always do in the post-game pod, with individual studs and duds. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. All right. So setting this up, obviously no Anthony Edwards. It was announced actually on Monday, first reported by Shams Charania of ESPN and The Athletic, that Ant is expected to miss 2 weeks. The Timberwolves will reevaluate him in a week. Of course, hamstring issues, like we talked about on Monday's show. I was just kind of projecting this, but like oftentimes they're almost always a multi-week issue, and it's better to be safe than sorry, especially in October. And the Wolves have a relatively palatable schedule here early in the season. Obviously, they're now 0-1 without Ant. Well, I don't know. You could count Monday since he only played 3 minutes, or Sunday, excuse me. So we'll say they're 1-1 without Ant so far this year. But obviously Edwards has never really missed significant time. I don't think he's ever missed more than 5 games in the season, if I'm not mistaken. And this is going to be a real test for the Timberwolves. Also, second night of a back-to-back against a Denver Nuggets team that had not played since Saturday. Obviously, a very good Denver Nuggets team and a healthy Denver Nuggets team. Timberwolves also did not have Jalen Clark, which is super significant. That wasn't announced until like an hour before the game that he was going to miss the game with calf tightness. Another thing, especially this day and age, Achilles injuries, etc. Better to be safe than sorry. But it really hurts to not have Jalen Clark against a team like Denver with a player like Jamal Murray. And to make matters worse, Rudy Gobert gets into early foul trouble. The Timberwolves have to play small early in the game. This is obviously not a matchup you're going to play Jean Beringer in. We saw a matchup against Jokic and Valanciunas in the preseason, and it did not go well. So it was a thinner front court for the Timberwolves, and that contributed to some of the problems early. Ultimately, that wasn't like number one, although the Wolves did lose the battle on the offensive glass in this game. There were plenty of other problems, and I guess what we'll do, let's start with, let's kind of go chronologically, and we're going to spend the second part of the game talking more, or second part of the show talking more about what some of the issues were. But in the first half, and Minnesota was only down 4 at the end of the first quarter, and the biggest issue was the defense. It was the point of attack defense and the lack of Jalen Clark, the lack of Anthony Edwards, which honestly, in a game like this, I mean, Minnesota ended up scoring enough, although I'll talk about what I didn't think, or what I think they didn't do well enough offensively. The headline is, of course, they gave up 127 points on 52% shooting and 50% on three-pointers to the Denver Nuggets. And no Anthony Edwards actually hurt them far more on the defensive end than it did on the offensive end. That meant they lost their best perimeter defender that plays a significant amount of minutes, right? Like Jalen Clark, pound for pound, is the best point of attack or perimeter defender the Wolves have, but he's only going to play 10, 12, 14, maybe 18, 20 minutes a game, maybe more than that when he's playing. Ant's obviously going to play 30 plus, 35 minutes. And he's a plus perimeter defender, especially when he's locked in, and especially in a matchup like this, when you know he would be a nationally televised, albeit on Peacock game, but the Timberwolves' first Peacock game of the season, against Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets, he would have been outstanding on defense in this game. No Ant and no Jalen Clark. So your two best perimeter defenders this side of Jaden McDaniels. And we know Minnesota wants to be using McDaniels more as almost a free safety of sorts. We saw this, the Portland game, it really stood out in it. Obviously, it's something they want to do on a nightly basis this year. But like, he was dominant as a help side defender in the Portland game. And that's what he was in this game too. And he was really good. Like, McDaniels had 4 block shots in this game. I thought he was very good defensively. But it changes the dynamic of what Minnesota can and can't do on the perimeter. And with no Ant and no Jalen Clark and McDaniels in a bit of a different role, that allowed Jamal Murray. Now, ultimately, they did have to put McDaniels on Murray, but the Murray-Jokic pick and roll is a really, really hard thing to defend. And Murray goes off for 43 points in this game. But the perimeter defense was the issues there were evident in the first quarter. When Denver dropped 34, Minnesota scored 30, but was still down 4 after the first quarter. And I thought perimeter defense was the biggest problem early in this game. Jaden was very good. He was actually really, Julius Randle was very good early too. They were collectively the reason why the Timberwolves offense was still right in this game. And then second quarter, Minnesota's a plus 12 in the second quarter. They're up by 8 at halftime. Credit to really Randle, McDaniels, and Reid. Really, all 3 of those guys were very good in the first half of this game. They all finished with nice stat lines too that we'll get to later, but most of their production was in the first half. Minnesota had 65 points at halftime, only 49 points in the second half of this game. As the game wore on, third quarter was all Jamal Murray. The lack of solid point of attack defending reared its ugly head in a significant way in the third quarter. And Jamal Murray scored 23 of his 43 points in the third. Now, yeah, there were a couple of really tough shots. I think the first bucket out of halftime was like Gobert had a hand in his face. It was inside the 3-point line. It was like a 19-foot, 20-foot left wing jumper from Jamal Murray. Bad shot selection. I don't even think it was at the end of the shot clock. And Gobert had a hand in his face, and Murray made the shot. Now, the Wolves are still going under screens. Like, they were doing stuff that they were bringing this on themselves to an extent. But, and that's kind of what allowed Murray to get a rhythm and get hot. And a hot Jamal Murray is a player nobody wants to face. And that's what ended up happening was Murray was just piping hot. He could not miss. And then at that point, it didn't matter what you did. He was just going to make the shot. And again, 23 in the frame. Denver scores 45 in the quarter. Minnesota goes from up 8 at halftime to down 8 going to the fourth quarter. And it was just all about Jamal Murray in the third. And then in the fourth quarter, the Timberwolves actually do something really smartly that gets them back to within a bucket. And I want to explain what they did, which they then went away from. Things snowballed. The game basically ended. So I want to key in on that next. What the Wolves did well that got them back into the game, and they needed to do more of it. We need to see this without Ant in the lineup here over the next couple of weeks. I'll break it all down here next, and we'll close here in a minute with individual studs and duds. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, of any NBA game, if you miss the start of the Wolves game, for instance, on Wednesday night, or maybe you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel will let you live bet on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. It's really a wide array of bets you can place live on FanDuel. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when it's your team that's making a late push. You can look ahead to Wednesday night's Timberwolves game. And actually, there's not a line yet on FanDuel as of this recording for that. You can talk NFL, though, do the same thing. The Thursday night game this week, Ravens at Dolphins. Lamar Jackson likely to play for Baltimore. They're favored by 7.5 points at Miami. I feel like if he plays, I would take Baltimore minus 7.5. If he doesn't, obviously, Miami plus 7.5 is the play. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at Game Time, our title sponsors at Game Time. Basketball season is well underway now, and nothing beats being in the arena for the opening games of the NBA season. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. If you were not able to get to Target Center for the opener against the Pacers on Sunday or Monday night's game against Denver, Wednesday's a marquee matchup. It's always fun when the Lakers come to town. It's usually tough to get tickets. Now, Luka Doncic will not be playing due to injury, but obviously LeBron expected to play. It's still a fun matchup, and Lakers fans are going to try and get those tickets. So make sure you grab tickets on Game Time. You could check out the zone deals option on Game Time, which is my favorite thing about it. An absolute game changer. You could pick your section. Game Time will pick your seats, and you will save big by using zone deals. Plus, you can even find NBA tickets for under $25. So check out Wolves, Lakers, and other upcoming Wolves games on Game Time now. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, so the Timberwolves got back in this game in the fourth quarter. Minnesota was down 8 going to the fourth. And at the start of the quarter, Minnesota immediately started to get back into things. In the same way Denver was pushing at the beginning of the third quarter. The beginning of the fourth quarter was all Minnesota. It was a lineup that Jaden McDaniels was actually off the floor. Conley and Gobert were on the floor, which is interesting because I'm about to talk about how Conley and Gobert, neither of them played very well. This is Conley, Gobert, it was DiVincenzo, it was Naz Reid, and who's the fourth? TJ Shannon were the 5 on the floor. Minnesota comes out. Conley misses a 3 on the first possession, but then after a couple stops, they come down. Gobert misses a shot on a nice roll to the rim, but gets his own board and makes a shot and it puts it back. So Minnesota's now down 6. Jokic turns it over on the other end. A nice play by TJ Shannon to steal it. Shannon gets fouled in transition, only makes 1 of 2 free throws. It's now a 5-point game. Another Jokic turnover on the other end. Jokic does this from time to time. The Timberwolves failed to score, but then so did the Nuggets. The Wolves get it back. They score again. They're now within 3 with 9:50 left. Another TJ Shannon in transition bucket. Okay. A couple more baskets traded. So 9 minutes to play. Wolves are still within 3. What did the Wolves do to get to that point? Well, first, you get the Gobert roll in the half court. Yes, but it was kind of a secondary break situation where they're playing fast. He gets his own rebound, puts it back. TJ Shannon gets the free throw line, pushing the pace in transition. The next time down, they shoot a 3 and miss it, but it was in transition. Actually, TJ forced the action. Shannon forced the action, got blocked at the rim. The Wolves ultimately got the ball back. They missed the 3-pointer, but it was all Shannon pushing the pace. The next possession where they get to within 3, TJ Shannon makes a layup in transition. What did they do? They pushed the pace. They tried to force the issue. They tried to play fast. Couple of things big here. One, the Nuggets don't want to play fast. I know the Wolves usually don't either. Talk more about that later. But the Nuggets don't want to play fast. Jokic was on the floor too. And I know it's a scary thing because Jokic can play fast without actually playing fast, if that makes sense. He's an outstanding outlet passer. We know that. But still, Jokic on the floor. Yes, Gobert was on the floor for Minnesota, but no Anthony Edwards. So for a couple of reasons, this is important. And perhaps this is something we'll talk a little bit about on tomorrow's show as well. But the Wolves need a higher variance solution against a team with no Anthony Edwards. The Nuggets are a superior team. Layer in the second night of a back-to-back for Minnesota, all the above. The Nuggets were favored to win this game. They should have won this game. Minnesota was starting to fall behind. You got to play a higher variance brand of basketball with no Anthony Edwards, which means more possessions, more shot opportunities. Try to get to the free throw line, try and get at more threes. So fundamentally, I think this team should play faster all the time. Without Ant, they need to play faster to give themselves more offensive opportunities. And I think it's easier, believe it or not, to play faster without Ant because Ant is often the one slowing things down. Ant likes to slow down and survey the floor. He likes to shoot like walk-up three-pointers in transition or in semi-transition. Like those are all things that that I think kind of lend themselves to Minnesota playing faster. And they did that and they got to within 3. And then things slowed down again. DiVincenzo missed kind of a weird mid-range shot that was actually kind of in transition. And then the next time down, TJ Shannon just tries to force the issue and has kind of a bad turnover, I believe, along the left side of the floor. And then the Nuggets come down and score. Then Gobert commits an offensive foul, I think trying to set a pin down for Mike Conley, or really, it wasn't actually, I don't think, a play call, if I remember the play right. I think he just kind of tried to do the thing where he steps in front and essentially it's like a chip block in football. It's like the running back trying to chip somebody. Gobert tries to throw an elbow, a shoulder to chip. When I think it was Conley trying to shoot a three, gets called for an offensive foul. Murray comes down, scores again. Nas misses a three. Nuggets come down, get a Peyton Watson three-pointer. Now it's a 10-point game. The Wolves have to call timeout. Playing fast got the Wolves back into it, and then things slowed right back down. And I think moving forward, like, first of all, for the reasons I already mentioned, I think it was important to, in order to win this game, Minnesota needed to play faster. Now you look at the box score, all things said and done, the Wolves lost fast break points 10-8 in this game. They had 8 fast break points, according to the box score. That doesn't include semi-transition secondary break opportunities. It's not necessarily an all-encompassing, super accurate number just based on this ESPN box score I'm looking at. But the Wolves did not play fast enough. And when they played faster, they gave themselves a better chance to win. That is certainly something I think needs to happen moving forward. And against a team like the Lakers Wednesday, we'll talk more about this on Wednesday's show, but I think that would be a smart approach against LA too, to try and play faster, create more offensive opportunities, higher variance opportunities. I think that would be the appropriate approach on Wednesday night. And moving forward in a lot of scenarios for this Timberwolves team without Anthony Edwards over the next at least week and a half to 2 weeks. So that didn't happen down the stretch, and Minnesota ultimately fell behind. I think once they got down by 10, I don't think they got it back to within 10 at all. No, the closest they got it after that, they got it to 9 with 5 minutes to play, but they did not get closer than 9 points the rest of the way. Overall, the worst things the Timberwolves did. So we talked about lack of pace. The shooting, obviously going cold from the perimeter, it was very good very early in this game. Minnesota had 30 points in the first quarter. They had 35 in the second. It's 65 points at halftime, right? So that's obviously number one is outside of the pace stuff, the three-point shooting just going downhill. For the game, Minnesota was 31% on threes. They were 47% overall from the field. So the 2-point shooting wasn't all too bad. They were okay in the paint. You look at the points of the paint, Minnesota and Denver were even. So that's actually not too bad considering Jokic and Valanciunas, who actually only played 10 minutes in this game. Turns out Jokic plays a lot. But it was more the perimeter stuff. We talked about the perimeter defense. Guarding the three-point line was not good. Denver had 50%, shot 50% on 26 threes. Minnesota was just 10 of 32 on three-point shots in this game. Nas was just 2 of 6. Bones Highland played 16 minutes and somehow got up 5 threes. This was not a good Bones Highland game. Limited perimeter scoring from Minnesota and lots of perimeter scoring from Denver. I mean, Denver was a +9 in terms of points from outside the arc. Minnesota was not able, even at points of the paint, Timberwolves had a very slight advantage at the free throw line. The advantage was everything in between for Denver. It was Jamal Murray in the mid range. It was Jokic doing Jokic stuff. Just a really kind of poor job defending the perimeter for Minnesota, and that only kind of exacerbated the issue with the Timberwolves' poor 3-point shooting. It just made it that much more glaring. And then I guess, perimeter defense. That was the other thing I had. I kind of went right into that without even hitting my bullet points exactly. It just kind of naturally flowed that, hey, look, if you're going to not be able to shoot on one end, you got to defend the 3-point line better on the other. And neither one of those things went well. And then combine that with the lack of pace for Minnesota. And there you have it. That's how you lose this thing by 13 points and give up 43 to Jamal Murray. So sorely missing Anthony Edwards for all the above reasons, missing Jalen Clark for the lack of perimeter defense in this game for Minnesota. And he's going to be a pivotal piece of this team without Ant. Again, the offense, yes, you got to be concerned about it, but they gave up 127 points in this game. And missing Ant's perimeter defense was a pretty big part of that as well. All right, let's close by talking individual studs and duds. I want to do that next, and then, well, actually, we'll get into that, and I guess as part of it, we'll talk about Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert because there's a lot there that I want to hit too. We'll do that here next to close the show. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS, software as a service, promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SaaD, software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. This show is sponsored by our friends at Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. What I love about Rippling is how it removes the bottlenecks and the busy work that oftentimes will slow teams down. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and is perfectly in sync. It is seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockdownnba. Learn more at rippling.com, rippling.com/lockdownnba. That's rippling.com/lockdownnba for 6 months free. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth between 401ks, savings, and investments. It is easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table, which is never a good thing. And that's why you can start using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It'll help you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on investments without having to even touch a dreaded spreadsheet. You can review everything you want with your partner if you guys want to make decisions on shared goals or just overall make better financial decisions together. You can do that through Monarch. Their visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, as we get into studs and duds, let's talk about Conley and Gobert. I know they were both on the floor for that push in the fourth quarter, but the Wolves were better in the first half without them on the floor. They were also on the floor when things kind of went awry in the fourth quarter for Minnesota. Conley was reinserted into the starting lineup with no Anthony Edwards, so you had both Conley and DiVincenzo starting. Obviously, that means Conley is your starting point guard. DiVincenzo's now your starting two. We'll see if that sticks. It could be opponent dependent. Knowing Chris Finch, it probably won't be. Conley was okay early, but man, I still think he can be an effective offensive player. But this looked like last October, November, Mike Conley, especially in the paint. He blew like 3 layups in this game. I'm not exaggerating. It may have been more. He was 2 of 5. Is that right? 2 of 5 on 2-point shots. So yeah, he blew 3 layups. We know he doesn't shoot anything. I guess floaters. He shoots floaters. He did hit a floater early, but he blew 3 layups in this game. He had 4 assists, no turnovers, but the misses at the rim from Conley are so tough. And you feel for the guy, and I don't really get it. I guess he's kind of avoiding contact in those situations, and you don't really blame him. He had a couple nice hustle plays, diving on the floor, knocking a loose ball around. There were some okay moments for Conley, but this was he looked like he did 12 months ago, and obviously he was great after the first year last year. I guess this calendar year, but last season. But this was not that. It was not great. Rudy Gobert, I thought, was even worse for as good as he was. And I said this. Was this on yesterday's show when I said this? I was worried about the second night of a back-to-back, taking on Jokic after playing as well as he did on Sunday and being a big part of that pace. I did say this on yesterday's show, that I was worried about what the contribution for Rudy could look like against Denver on the second night of a back-to-back. And sure enough, he had 8 and 5 in just 26 minutes. Early foul trouble was a big problem. He had one turnover, only two blocks in this game. But I think the bigger thing was he played just 26 minutes. And I thought he was ineffective when he was in the game. Minnesota actually was a little more effective when he was off the floor with the foul trouble early in this game, which is, it's a bit of a, I don't know what's the right term, but like it hurts them that he wasn't on the floor. But then again, they were better without him in this game. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So that's something I guess to keep an eye on in the Minnesota-Denver matchups later this year. They play again here in a couple of weeks, and then again on Christmas, and one more time after that. But and obviously Gobert's been good against Denver. We know that, but he isn't great at guarding Jokic one-on-one. I mean, nobody is except for Karl Anthony Towns. But just not a good Gobert game. Ultimately, he was a minus 18 in 26 minutes, which individual player single game plus minus is very noisy, but it was by far the worst mark of any Timberwolves player. So I thought it was a tough Gobert game. And honestly, I guess we could say we started with duds. Those guys both get duds in this game. I guess if I had to only pick two, I'd probably say Bones Highland played worse than Mike Conley. And I would save the duds. I would call Gobert and Bones my actual duds for this game. Bones Highland had 4 points on 6 shots. He was 1 of 5 on 3-pointers in just 16 minutes. 1 assist to 2 turnovers, just not helpful. Dillingham did play 12 minutes, had 4 points at 2 of 2, had some iffy moments as he does, but he had some good moments. He somehow managed to turn it over 3 times in 12 minutes. So Bones Highland and Rob Dillingham combined had 3 assists and 5 turnovers. And now we know why Mike Conley plays 26 minutes, right? Like not surprising. Yes, I know Dillingham has to play to get better. I get it. I think he's going to get his chances over the next couple of weeks here. I think the Wolves are going to need some offensive help. They're going to need some higher variance play. Going back to what I said earlier, I don't know that this was the matchup anyway that he was going to have a ton of success in, but that's certainly something to keep an eye on from Chris Finch. Studs, we didn't talk a whole lot about McDaniels other than he played well early. He had 25 points on 16 shots, had some nice drives to the hoop in the actually early in the third quarter, also early in the game period. 10 of 16 shooting overall, 1 of 3 on threes, got to the line 4 times, made all 4 of his free throw attempts. Just 3 rebounds in 35 minutes from Jaden, which isn't enough. He did have 4 blocks in this game, as we talked about earlier, and I thought he was good overall. Could have used him a little bit more offensively down the stretch, but that's not all on him. As the Wolves are not exactly running their offense through him all the time intentionally. Julius Randle had 24 points on 8 of 15, 1 of 4 on 3. Same deal there, where Julius got quieter as the game went on. Did get to the line 8 times, made 7 shots there, 7 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Another efficient and effective game from Julius Randle. He was probably the Timberwolves' best all-around player in this game. It'd be between him and Jaden. I mean, they were both very good overall. And then Naz Reid would be the third one. 18 and 7 from Naz, 7 of 12 shooting, 2 of 6 on threes. He was 5 of 6 on 2-point attempts, just 2 of 4 at the free throw line, but he had 1 steal and a block, 2 assists, 2 turnovers. A decent Naz Reid game overall. TJ Shannon was better. He was a big part of the Wolves' kind of quick flurry in the early fourth quarter, as we talked about already. I think he needs a little more leash. I think he needs a few more minutes. He did play 25 in this game, but he was not great defensively. But look, neither was Mike Conley, neither was Dante DiVincenzo, neither was Bones Highland, neither was Rob Dillingham. At least, Bones competed a little on that end, but I think Shannon's got more defensive upside than all those guys. So I don't know. I like, again, higher variance play, faster pace. If you're not going to defend anyway, you might as well have somebody that's going to push the pace offensively, can knock down threes and get to the free throw line, and that's TJ Shannon. I think he needs a little more leash here moving forward. All right. That's all I got from this one. This was going to be tough sledding, period. It just was, without Ant, second night of a back-to-back. It is what it is. Next up, the Wolves get a Luka Doncic-less Lakers team on Wednesday night. That's an 8:30 p.m. ESPN game. I'm sure ESPN's pumped to get no Luka and no Ant. That said, I mean, it's still the Lakers and it's still LeBron, so I'm sure they'll be fine. Wolves-Lakers, 8:30 p.m., another late local tip on ESPN on Wednesday, and then the Wolves don't play again until Saturday night at Charlotte. So certainly some winnable games upcoming, and no line yet on Wednesday's game, but certainly a winnable game, albeit a tough game at home for Minnesota as they try to get back above 500. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll preview that matchup. We'll talk probably a bit about some of the higher variance play that I talked about a little bit today. But I'll expand on that. I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that and what I'm looking for in Wolves, Lakers, and beyond. We'll do that on a Wednesday show. A big thank you here off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. Also, for your second listen, go check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Our guy Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast that's out there. He'll give you daily tips and help you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, this show is part of that very same podcast network. The Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.